Chapter 27. Pip woke with an empty stomach and a dry throat. To his surprise, the sun was high in the sky. He must have slept for a long time. He stood up, shaking his limbs to get some warmth back into his body, then walked back the way he had come last night, wandering alongside the Thames. He didn't yet know his way around London, but he recognised some landmarks. A distinctive steeples of the tallest churches, the silhouette of London Bridge, and the flags flying over the Bear Garden and the Globe. He remembered Robert Armin, the one person who he knew in London. What about asking him for a job, he thought. It's worth a try, thought Pip. And if he says no, I'll cross the river, find Smithfield and beg the Smiths for work. Pip thought about the play that he'd seen. Acting looked easy. You just stood on a stage and spoke some words. Who couldn't do that? The Globe would make a good base, near the Bear Garden, always packed with people, the perfect place to watch out for the weasel. He headed towards the flag. The streets were full of people, but no one took any notice of him. He was just another scruffy boy with mud on his clothes. The city was packed with kids like him, runaways and outcasts, stealing or scavenging whatever they could. Some of them died after a few days. Others lived on the streets for the rest of their lives, and a few earned enough to start a business, buying a horse or hiring a shop, and slowly turned themselves into ordinary citizens. He'd reached the Globe. People were hurrying in and out of the entrance, carrying costumes and props. Some actors lay on the grass outside chatting. Pip recognised them from the play. This morning, stripped of their costumes, they looked unimpressive and ordinary. Looking at them, you'd have thought that they could have been anyone, or anyone could have been an actor. Even me, thought Pip. He imagined himself standing on the Globe stage, entering a big crowd. They'd laugh at his jokes, applaud his wisdom, cheer as he drew his sword and slaughtered his enemies. Pretty soon he would become the most famous actor in London. People would queue for hours to see him. One afternoon, a few months from now, he would be standing on the stage speaking lines of a play, and he would look down and see a familiar face in the crowd. He wouldn't be like Hamlet. Oh no, not Pip. He would never hesitate. He would jump off the stage holding his sword and run the blade straight through the weasel's chest. He strode towards the Globe, already imagining how the weasel would look as he staggered backwards, blood spilling down the front of him and collapsing in a heap. As he walked through the main entrance, a man grabbed his arm and pulled him around. "Where do you think you're going?" "Inside," said Pip, shaking off the man's hand. "Not now, you're not. The show doesn't start till this afternoon." "I'm meeting someone." "Yeah, who?" "Mr. Robert Armin," said Pip. "Does he know you?" "Of course he knows me." "Oh, come on then." The man stood aside, letting Pip through the door. "Sorry for shouting at you, but we get a lot of people sneaking in here all the time. Even at this time of the afternoon. Crazy, innit? They'll do anything to avoid paying for a ticket." "I'll just be 5 minutes," said Pip. "No problem. Take your time. He's over there." The man pointed to a group of 3 men who were standing on the stage. Pip thanked the doorman and hurried into the Globe. The theatre was packed with people. Actors were sitting in the galleries discussing their hangovers. Soon they would be called to the stage and asked to rehearse their entrances and exits for today's performance. Carpenters and stagehands were already building the scenery. Since the Globe staged a different play every day, the scenery had to be constructed every morning and dismantled every evening. Pip walked across the pit and ran up the stairs that led onto the stage. He felt nervous as he approached the group. Robert Armin was arguing with 2 other men. Pip recognised both of them from the play. One had played the king, the other, a boy of Pip's own age, had played a girl. disguising his sex under a long white dress and a blonde wig. Today, dressed in leather breeches and a bright blue shirt, he looked like any other swaggering boy, cheeky and full of confidence. Pip tugged Robert's sleeve. "Begging your pardon, Mr. Armin, could I have a word?" Robert broke off whatever he was saying and turned around. "Oh, hello. It's Pip, right?" "That's right. What are you doing here?" "I have something to ask you," said Pip. "Go on then, ask." "It's private." "This is a theatre," said Robert. "Nothing is private here." The other two actors laughed. Pip said, "I'd rather speak in private, sir. These men are my friend. I have no secrets from them. Go on, spit it out. What do you want to say?" "I want to be an actor," said Pip. Robert smiled and shook his head. The other man grinned. The boy burst out laughing. Pip felt embarrassed and furious. He glared at the three actors. What was so funny? Robert was wearing different clothes to yesterday. That marked him as a rich man. In mild May, most people wore the same clothes for at least a month. The other man, the actor who played the king, must have been handsome a few years ago, but now he had a pot belly and deep wrinkles around his eyes. But it was the boy, the one who had played the girl, who held Pip's attention. He was probably about 11, although he could have been just about any age between 10 and 16. He had soft cheeks and a boy's face, but he held himself like a grown man, looking at the world with poise and self-confidence of someone who had seen it all before. His hair was blonde and cleaner than Pip's had ever been. He had blue eyes, freckles, and a straight nose. He was wearing expensive clothes and carrying a leather purse strapped to his belt, and the coins chinking whenever he moved. Standing beside these three sophisticated men, Pip felt like a country bumpkin. He was conscious of his dirty face and smelly breeches. He remembered that his last meal had been pulled from a heap of rubbish, and his last bed had been an alley, and only yesterday someone had tipped a bucket of poo on his head. It had been a stupid idea, he now realised, to come back to the Globe. He was a country boy, a villager, a peasant, a smith. He knew how to fight, how to forge metal, how to milk a cow, which herbs cured headaches, and where to find wild garlic, but he didn't know the first thing about acting. He should have stuck to what he knew. He was just about to turn his back on the actors and walk out of the theatre to make his way to Smithfield, when Robert said, "Why?" Pip said, "What? Why do you want to be an actor?" Pip could have answered with, "I need a job so I can stay in London and find the weasel, and I want to find Scar, Tooth, Pigface too, and kill all four of them in revenge of what they did, and then I want to find my father." But he was pretty sure Robert Armin wouldn't have the patience to listen to a lengthy explanation, and wouldn't be interested either. What would interest him? Praise? Robert was vain. Yesterday he sucked up compliments from Pip. People in the street and those women in the bear garden. Pip said, "I want to be an actor because of what I saw yesterday. That play was the best thing I've seen in my life. What you did, I want to do that too." The three actors smiled. "Well, it wasn't bad," said the man who played the king. "Shakespeare is definitely getting better, if you think of the nonsense he used to knock out." Robert Armin nodded. "Remember the Comedy of Errors? What twaddle was that? Rotten gags, and not a single decent song." "I still think Romeo and Juliet is the best," said the boy. "More action, more love, more interest. More lines for you, that too." The boy grinned. In a high voice he started reciting his lines. "Farewell, God knows when we shall meet again." He fluttered his eyelashes like a woman and put his hands over his heart. "I have a faint cold fear thrills through my veins and almost freezes up the heat of the life." We've all seen your Juliet's interpretation, said Robert. No need to do it again. He hasn't, said the boy, pointing at Pip. Lucky him. As the boy started to protest, Robert turned to Pip. I'm sorry, my young friend, but I can't help you. If you want my advice, then learn a trade. Why don't you become a carpenter? Everyone needs carpenters. The money's good and you'll always be sure of having a job. Any day now, the Puritans are going to shut the theatres. If by some miracle we manage to stop them, the plague will close us instead. The actors, the musicians, the writers will all be unemployed. But the carpenters, they'll still be putting up shelves and building doors, earning a decent wage. Pip's shoulders slumped. The Bearkeeper didn't want to employ him, nor did the actors. What if the Smiths didn't either? What would he then do? Starve? The boy stared at Pip. Perhaps he felt some sort of connection to him. They were both the same age after all, and might have been friends if their circumstances were different, because he said, why can't he have a chance? We all have to start somewhere. Go on, Arming, give him a chance. Pip looked up, full of hope. No, said Robert. Why not, said the boy. We're busy. What would happen if we gave a chance to every kid who walked in here wanting to be an actor? It won't take more than 2 minutes, said the boy. You know Richard, if he likes someone, he says so after 2 minutes. I can tell you now, said Robert. He's not going to like him. Then we've all wasted 2 minutes of our lives, so what? Oh, very well, said Robert. He cupped his hands around his mouth and shouted across the globe to a tall, thin man who had his back to them. Richard! Richard! The tall, thin man turned around. Pip recognised him. It was Richard Burbage, the man who played Hamlet. There's no need to shout, I'm right here. Do you have 2 minutes? If it's extremely important, said Richard. What's the problem? Robert gestured at Pip. This pup wants an audition. That's the end of chapter 27. I wonder if we find out if Pip gets the job in chapter 28. Does he become an actor? We'll have to wait and see.